The Vampire 2 is a legendary tier Australian destroyer and the reward for the ongoing March 2025 campaign. Today we're going to take a look at the ship and I'll give you my first impressions on it, essentially. This is a ship with which I have a bit of experience. I own the thing on PC, and it's very similar here. I've got a series of clips to show you before the main feature, and the first one is against this Sumner, who is behaving, admittedly, a little bit like a bot. He's pushing into the cap. Notice we've got the sonar up. He's caught in our sonar. We're smoked up, shooting AP at his broadside, and with just a couple more salvos here, the AP is very effective against destroyers. He goes down for the first blood, and then we're going to be able to secure this cap. It's completely free of an enemy destroyer. This should give you a taste of what the Vampire 2 is good at, and if you need any more evidence of that, so that you know it wasn't just a fluke against a destroyer that was not playing particularly well, let's take a look at this match, where we're in a Charlie cap right at the beginning. There's a smoke screen in front of us. It's occupied by a destroyer that we saw moments ago and did 7,540 damage to. The destroyer is a Z-44. He's got us caught in his sonar. We've got him caught in ours for at least the next 33 seconds. Starting off shooting the AP once again, or HE, once again switching to the AP, getting a lot of damage, and there we go, another first blood medal. This cap, though, is occupied by a second enemy destroyer. There's actually two on the enemy team in this match, and they're both over here. We appear to be located by the second enemy destroyer. We're locating him in return. We're going to find him. It's a Kleber, much more, I would say, dangerous opponent. Even though the Z-46 does have sonar, the Kleber has much harder hitting guns, and it's got the main battery reload booster. So we'll deploy the smoke. As you can see, the Vampire 2 has a smoke sonar combo, but this smoke is a little unusual. There's not too many smoke screens like it in the game. It's one of the crawling smoke generators. So it will follow you while you're moving, but only if you're moving at a quarter throttle, which tops out at about 8.6 knots. So not very quick, you're just crawling along as the smoke envelops you. Sort of like the Italian smoke screens, but in slow motion. If you reverse, by the way, the smoke will not cover you. You actually go faster in reverse than you do going forward at 1/4 throttle. So you have to go 1/4 throttle. Kleber is outside of the capture circle. As you can see here, we're just farming the enemy Lauria so that we can take the cap circle. And after that, once we've got it secured, if we maybe want to speed up a little bit more, we'll be able to exit our smoke screen, and provided the Kleber hasn't run for the hills, we may be able to spot him. We've got a lot of teammates behind us too, by the way, a battleship and two cruisers. Kleber is back in the cap. He's contesting it. That means we're probably going to try to spot him. Lauria is going further and further away all the time. We sort of want to time this to make sure that Lauria doesn't shoot at us, but Kleber launches torpedoes. We turn to dodge them. We exit the smoke screen, immediately kick it into full reverse so that we will go concealed again. Kleber shooting at us, no longer with the main battery reload booster, so I'd say we have a little bit more of an easier chance to sink him. Plus, you know, with the help of the teammates, he's not going to be floating for too much longer. Using a combination of both the AP and the HE, we should be able to take out the Kleber. We don't. We get the fist for it, but he goes down, and that's both enemy destroyers in this match eliminated. Unfortunately, as you might imagine, we would go on to lose it. Couldn't really do anything after losing all that HP. So, on to the main feature. A game in the Vampire 2 on the Estuary map. This will be a full match, and hopefully it's somewhat representative of what the ship can do. If you haven't gotten the hint by now, this thing is very good at countering enemy destroyers. It essentially is a daring class destroyer, but somewhat modified. Main difference is in the consumable suite, I would say. Of course, you've already seen the rolling smoke screen and how that works. The sonar, I'll give you a little bit more detail on that. It's a bit like the typical British sonar that you would have, in the sense it spots torpedoes at a range of 3.1 kilometers, but perhaps more crucially, it spots enemy ships at a range of 4.4 kilometers. So, longer than the British sonar you would find on the actual Daring. Not quite as robust as, say, the German destroyers. Like the Z 52, for example, I believe has 6 kilometer ship detect on its sonar. This is not quite as good, but you combine it with the rolling smoke, and you do have a smoke sonar combo, which is useful against enemy destroyers as we've seen. There's also a destroyer in this cap. I don't know, I can't remember actually if we're going to be using the smoke sonar combo against this guy, but we are going to push into the cap. We're rather alone. We've got Republique and some other battleship out there supporting this Shimakaze, but there's really nobody in a position to support us, so it's just going to be a 1v1 versus Shima. Luckily, as soon as he gets spotted, he decides he's going to smoke up. We do the same in return. Our smoke screen lasts for quite a while, a duration, at least what it tells me, of 100 seconds, although it appears to perhaps be a little bit longer than that, and then it takes 100 seconds to reload. We put on the sonar, we're able to push into the Shimakaze, acquire vision of him, and finish him off with the AP. This is short-fused British DD armor piercing, basically. Has improved pen angles, so as you can see, most of the time it gets full penetration on enemy destroyers, making it very lethal. Seems to do quite a bit more damage than the HE. Although you probably do want to use the HE if the destroyer is angled and you're getting a lot of ricochets. In addition to the smoke and the sonar, we have a speed boost. It's just a conventional speed boost with only an 8% buff, pretty much like every other destroyer out there. But it's something the Daring doesn't have, and I suppose crucially, we have that speed boost in place of a heal. Daring's heal is not great, I don't think. It doesn't restore too much HP, but it restores some, which gives you a little bit of extra survivability. We don't have that here on the Vampire 2, and I would say these are essentially the main differences between Daring and Vampire. It's a different flavor of Daring. Now, let's run down these stats as we usually do, and I'm going to show you my commander build later on in this match. It's the new Commonwealth Destroyer commander that you can get by completing the ongoing calendar event, which you can find on the main page of the game. Or actually, no, sorry, that's a different commander. That's for the Dutch. You get this commander for the Vampire 2 in segment 95 of the campaign, so near the tail end of it. Also, because he's Commonwealth, you can use him on the Tier 7 Haida. So Haida, by extension, finally gets a destroyer commander, and we'll have to take a look at that in a future video. Anyway, keep in mind, one of my inspirations on this new commander is William Sims. The other inspiration is Eric Bai. So this is totally a free-to-play build. Well, free-to-play, I guess you have to buy the Admiralty backing and grind the campaign to get the commander, but close enough. So the numbers I read you here are going to be influenced by those two inspirations, as well as the rest of the commander's skill tree. We've got 23,220 HP with William Sims. I'd say that's pretty good. That's right in line with the tier. Allows for a little bit of extra tankiness, but as you can see, the Vampire 2 sits kind of high out of the water. Seems like it's fairly easy to hit. And, well, it'll lose a lot of HP in an extended fight. But it's got DPM to dish out in return. We've got 6 113mm guns, same size as the Daring, in 3 double turrets, 2 on the front, 1 on the back. The range with these guns is 11.8 kilometers, but that is with the sidestep skill on the commander. We've got a reload time of 2.3 seconds. I believe we are running the reload mod. Very snappy turret traverse time of 8.5 seconds. Maximum HE shell damage 1700 with an 8% fire chance. Pretty good numbers when you've got that quick of a reload. And 2100 on the AP. But let's pause for a moment. What are we detected by? Sonar. And we are proxy spotting the culprit. It is USS Alaska, who, I don't know, maybe he's not aware that the Vampire 2 has torpedoes, but it does. It's only got 5 of them, but 5 of them will be more than enough to take out the Alaska. Not sure what the plan was there. It only takes 3 to sink that guy. He should have known they were coming, I would think, but he went around the corner anyway. As for the torpedoes, as I said, there are 5. They are in one quintuple launcher. With this being a British destroyer, you can launch them single file. Well, not a British destroyer, an Australian one based off a British destroyer. So as such, it gets that unique British gimmick. They reload in 96 seconds. They do a maximum damage of 19,500, making them some of the hardest hitting torpedoes in the entire game, right up there, I'd say, with the French torpedoes. I think they hit even a little harder than that, not quite as hard as the IJN torpedoes. They have a sea detectability range, though, of 1.3 kilometers, which means they're quite stealthy. They range out to 12 km, and they go at 62 knots. So they're fairly slow, I would say, actually, relative to all the new torpedoes we have in this game, like the Pan-Europeans, for example. But, they're not quite as slow as something like the Italian sea mines, so they're certainly usable. The AA defenses, I don't really know what to tell you there. We've got an aggregate rating of 52, but luckily there's not a lot of CVs running around at Legendary Tier, which makes it perhaps a little bit more pleasing to play than Tier 7 at the moment. Maneuverability on the Vampire, if anything's a low light, it's this stat. 35 knot top speed. Not very good, rather pedestrian. You can, of course, boost that with the engine boost, but at that point, you're going about as fast as a normal destroyer at the tier. However, we do have a 680-meter turning circle and a 4.2-second rudder shift, and our concealment is 5.4 kilometers. So, I'd say these stats are pretty good, and this thing essentially plays like a Daring, but with this crawling smoke screen. It's very similar to the Daring in every other way, it's just a different flavor. In some ways, I'd say I prefer the Daring 6 short-duration British smokes. They offer a little bit more versatility, and in situations like this, where we're not really getting vision of the Montana, we have to exit and re-enter the smoke screen, but in order to stay concealed, of course, we have to go at quarter throttle, which makes it very easy for the Montana to hit us. We perhaps are not playing this as well as we possibly could be. We're just sort of greedily trying to farm damage as we get into the cap, and we certainly don't need to be doing this. I suppose with the Daring, if we were in a similar situation, we'd have basically the same problem, but we could bait the Montana into shooting, deploy the smoke screen, and then sit there while we're waiting for a smoke firing penalty. Unfortunately, we run out of the smoke, and the Montana sinks us. That potentially could have been a throw, but given that we've almost, I would say single-handedly, eliminated all the opposition on this flank with the help of maybe 1 battleship and acquired 4 kills, the friendly team on the other side of the map is doing all right. They're going to be able to take out the enemy Daring, and once he goes down, it's pretty much all over for them. The last remaining battleship that they have is a Yamato that has about 2 HP. So I think we've done everything we needed to do to win this battle, and we will end up winning the battle by the time we get to the results screen. Now, we should talk about the commander before we get there. His name is Hector Waller, and as I said, you can acquire him in segment 94 of the campaign. I'll put his build up on the screen right now so you can see it. And as you can see, he's a bit of a standard gunboat archetype destroyer commander, which is great for the Vampire 2 being mostly a gun-focused destroyer. Same thing for the Haida, the other ship you could potentially use this guy on. I've got one of his legendary skills highlighted because I think a lot of hullabaloo has been made about it. It's called Steadfast Soldier. It increases the destroyer HP by 4% and reduces the chance that the engine and the steering gears will be knocked out by 30%. But the special effect is an auto repair when your destroyer HP is equal to or less than 30%, sort of like a will to rebuild. But the difference here is that in order to get that particular effect to proc, you have to be close to an enemy ship. I've got this guy at Legendary Rank 2, and it says to activate the Will to Rebuild Like Healed, the enemy ship has to be within 4.5 kilometers of you. So I've tried using the skill in a couple of games. I think I've played about 10 matches in the Vampire 2. 3 of them I used that skill. Couldn't really get it to proc because every time I was within 4.5 kilometers of an enemy ship, well, I just sort of sunk before the heal could do its effect. So I'm still going to use Unstoppable. I think there's still no other skill in that legendary slot that makes me want to use it instead of Unstoppable. But the Vampire 2, as you can see from this video, seems to be a pretty good ship. I think I'd probably recommend this campaign to grind. And there's probably more to be said on the ship. I'll try to make some videos as time goes on. I'm sure we can get some good results. This one was pretty good. 3,000 XP, Course of Victory, and a healthy amount of damage. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.